All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. As always, your host, Brenden, joined my co-host, Nick and Dan. And gentlemen, we have the Leeds United match review. Not the way we wanted to wrap up this weekend. Thankfully, some other results around the league maybe kind of stole the headlines, but not for us. We are squarely focused on this one. So it's going to be probably a little bit more introspective, Nick, rather than reactionary, because how do you react to a 3-0 drubbing by a freaking American coach?
Yeah, I don't know. This is going to be a weird one, I think, because it's early in the season. I think, we were having a conversation in WhatsApp with some of our friends that you will have known. And I think there's a lot of different opinions floating around right now, which tells you that there's probably not one simple solution to answer the equation that we're currently faced. So, yeah.
We're going to get some soliloquies, Dan, maybe some, I don't know, other poems or things, but.
Poems? I'm not going to go into iambic pentameter for you. So we'll just transition to the three-word match review.
Not even a word. All right. Well, look, we're going to be breaking down Chelsea's lacking display versus Leeds, which is a very a toned down way to put it. Then we'll talk about the unanswered questions that need answers for Bully and Tuchel with 10 days left in the window. Like I said, a little bit more questions, not really going to pick apart this match too much because, we might be here a long time and it would just sound terribly obnoxious. So anyways, Dan, set the mood, set the tone, 3-word match review. Here we go.
Look, Zarly, just right off the top, clearly excited about the House of Dragons premiere this weekend with a shame gif from the wonderful Game of Thrones series. Brandon Busby knows all about it. Kev with the, not words, with the first 3 notes of the Curb Your Enthusiasm song. Very good there. Nicholas with the We've Been Marshed. 21 Watt with the Those Darn Americans. Our friend Dennis, couch critic, with the Pressed into Submission. Very accurate there. Stephen with the Annual Abysmal Loss. Jonathan with the Starts with Mendy. We had Sergeant Soy Sauce with the Edward De Gea. There's a little, JKT with the Weekend Masochist Anonymous. And then our good friends at the Went to Mo Kings Meadow with the Hurry Back WSL, because that is something positive to look forward to. If you listen back to our wonderful episode breaking down the third place match of the ICC women's tournament that Chelsea won over the Portland Thorns.
Yeah, came up a little bit short, but hey, it's preseason. That's not when the hardware matters. So it was good to have the Chelsea women on U.S. soil. It's good, Dan, you got to be there for the first match. And hopefully they can have another really strong season. We'll be covering that with Blue Royalty, Jesse, Abdullah, Nick, rotating with Dan and myself as needed. More content on the women's team coming. They are a bunch of ballers. My 3-word match review, as I try to distract from the rest of this, is Tuchel isn't worried. If you listen to his post-match press conference, he thinks we all have it wrong. So I'm excited to hear about how that's going to work out. Dan, what about you?
Today, soccer won.
Boo.
You are trying to start a revolt, and I see what you're doing. Nick, over to you.
Asking leads in questions.
That.
That's well done. It wasn't too big of a stretch. We'll run that one in.
And typically we'd have more fun here. Chelsea took away that fun. That's very sad. They took away the fun of the 3-word match review.
What we really should have is the clip from Remember the Titans. You think football is fun? No, absolutely the fuck not.
Whew, 3rd week of the season. All right, here we go. Quick shout out, Stan. Some gratitude for people that are giving us some love. We're returning the favor.
Well, that is right, Brandon Busby. No new Patreon, but hey, come join us and try to not fall into the through the moon door to the descent of disarray and concern and despair. Apple Podcasts, 5-star reviews from Jack JD from the UK, Nick K1 from the US, and then Michael S. Wortham from the US as well. And wonderful 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Some people find the show. And then look on Spotify, we're still at 4.9 at over 1.3K reviews. It's 100 1,300 plus reviews that we've received. Let's push 1.5 and try to catch up to ESPN FC because they're not fun and we are. So help us get there. Take a friend's phone. Take a loved one's phone. Take a stranger's phone on the bus. Ask them, hey, do you have Spotify? Can you listen to a podcast real quick for me? Have that moment of human interaction and leave a 5-star review for us through that.
Just a friendly reminder about stranger danger. Protect yourselves and your loved ones. But we would appreciate it. Any kind of distribution growth is welcome as we share the good story of Chelsea Football Club. But Liz, it's time. No more distractions. No more shenanigans. Here we go. Match details. It was Leeds United this past Sunday, the 21st of August in the Premier League. We were away at Elland Road. Turns out you can get there by plane or bus. Didn't know if you guys knew that. Actually, you guys did, because haven't you done Leeds away?
We did.
The train.
You didn't do private charter?
No.
How's that trip on the bus?
We got
the train.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I was trying to figure out what Tuchel's life was like today, but you guys have no insight. So
I'm sure the train was better than a bus.
Scoreline, in case you somehow missed it. Leeds 3, Chelsea 0. Absolutely shut out goals from American Brenden Aaronson in the 33rd minute. New Rafinha Rodrigo in the 37th minute, and then Jack Harrison, the assist return goal scorer in the 69th minute. It was all shocking from there. So we'll go ahead and flip it over to Chelsea. Fifth stand up for the official highlights. Thank you to Chelsea for letting us use these. Go download the fifth stand up if you have not. Highlights? ? Here we go. All right, Dan. Now that we've relived that nightmare, go ahead and run us through the lineup. Let us know what Tuchel put for his starting 11 that fell apart so quickly.
Well, everyone who watched the match knows that Edouard Mendy was between the six for parts of the game. It was Thiago Silva, Reece James, and Koulibaly as your back three, with a Jorginho, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mason Mount, Conor Gallagher, and Marc Cucurella with the amorphous midfield-ish, not midfield, and wing-back situation. And it was Raheem Sterling, Kai Havertz as your forwards. This is the way that the Premier League app in Premier League is writing it down. Kepa, Chalobah, Ampadu, Carney, and Callum Hudson-Odoi, the unused substitutes. And we did see Ben Chilwell, Azpilicueta, Christian Pulisic, and Hakim Ziyech, who apparently now is on a plane back to the Netherlands.
I think he's there by now.
Favorites. Well, yeah, by the time we're listening, he's probably there.
Yeah, he might have announced something by now, but we won't get into that. That's speculative. We'll save that for Matt Law and Naz and Adam Newsom. But some of the top line stats: Chelsea with 60% possession, 14 shots, 3 on target yet again. Leeds had 12 shots, 6 on target. Big differences there. We had 22 tackles, so they're 23, pretty even there. We had 12 clearances there, 14 again, pretty even. 6 corners there, 4. 7 offsides for Chelsea. Big one right here to their 1. 1 caution, 1 red card to Chelsea, none for the Dirty Leeds. And we both conceded 15 and 16 fouls respectively. So lastly, at Kaylee_graphics hitting us with the XG. It's a rough one, they say. 2.1 roughly to 0.7 was the XG of this one. And the moral of the story yet again here, Nick, is that a lot of possession, a lot of chances created, none of note.
This was shit. I don't know what else to say about it. It was a really bad performance. We got out hustled, out thought, out coached. Every single part of the team that was there got absolutely worked by a team that should not be at our level and who's kind of playing with some house money and some enthusiasm of the new coach bounce, having barely survived last year. Like Dan and I were there in May, along with producer Jake, to take in what was a cakewalk of a match. They did the same suicide pressing in that match, and we absolutely ripped them to shreds. So I have a lot of questions as to what happened here today, but that's my take.
I'm going to assume you do not have an NPET shithouse moment of the match.
No.
Understandable. One random stat coming from Squawka. Leeds have recorded their biggest win over Chelsea since March 1995 when they also won 3-0. Super cool, Squawka. Appreciate all you do. But anyways, we're going to take our ad break because we need a break from this. But when we're back, Chelsea's lacking display. We're going to break down whatever we want to from the match. Teaser, it's not going to be a lot. So thank you to the sponsors for financially supporting the show, and we'll be right back. All right, gentlemen, the match, if you want to call it that, for Chelsea's side. Obviously, a lot of individual mistakes. Tuchel pretty aggressive in the post-match press conference where I was kind of pulling my 3-word match review from Dan, where he doesn't know why people are worried about the 11 kilometers more that Leeds ran than Chelsea. He said, we dealt with it. We limited their chances. Running for running's sake is not what we do. We had a game plan. We executed it. It was 2 individual mistakes that led to this defeat, and that was it. What do you make of all that?
Well, one individual mistake absolutely led to 1 goal, which changed the whole direction of the game. There was a very interesting video after the fact with the foul, air quotes, that led to the second goal, which was not a foul in any way, shape, or form. And then the third was just a really good move off of a set piece. So, I mean, yeah. And it's like 1-2. There you go. This game could have gone so differently if the Mendy thing doesn't happen. I still think it would have been a hard result because Leeds looked way, way more up for it. Like I think this is a credit to Marsh, who I think rightfully from many, myself included, got a lot of stick this week for the way he was puffing out his chest and talking about how Tuchel shouldn't be on the sidelines and what it means to get a red card and why you should be able to challenge it. And he got his team ready to go, and they pressed with 7 pretty much all the time and made it really difficult for a Chelsea team that did not want to get pressed like that, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I hear your point. Like, I think each goal was preventable, right? I don't think good football created any of those goals, really. Like, even the third goal, if you look at the replay, Koulibaly just slacked off of his responsibility. The ball goes into the mixer, and then they get a deflection in from Harrison, right? Like, this was not a clinical 3-0 performance by Leeds. But if you take away this, the Sterling non-foul, we weren't up for it. Like, we were just not there. No player on the pitch looked remotely as committed as any of the Leeds players did, which is what's scary to me. And there did not seem to be a plan to break their press. And you can tell there wasn't a plan to break their press because while we did have 14 shots, 3 of those were on target, and all 3 of those were pretty tame.
Well, we only got a 0.71 XG off of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was so hard for us to advance the ball through the midfield, let alone get shots off. I mean, this team labored today. And what scares me about that is that this team had a full week to prepare for this game. A full fucking week. Like last year, we had a full week to prepare for a match like 3 or 4 times. Like, you think about all the matches that we played. I think we ended up playing, 62 total matches last year? Something like that. And if you just do the math, there just aren't that many weeks in the year, so you can have 1 match a week. Like, yes, this is what Leeds will have every single week because they are nowhere near European football. But Chelsea had a full week to prepare and still came up absolutely empty for this. And look, Thomas Tuchel has earned our trust, but I think a lot of people are upset at how flippant he was after the game. This is not good enough. It's not. You don't lose to Leeds 3-0. You don't lose to Spurs 3-0. You don't lose to Arsenal 4-1 at the end of last year. It's just not done. Like, you can't, as a Chelsea fan, accept that. Especially after you pumped them last year 3-0 and you won at the Bridge 3-2. Like, this should be a game that Chelsea's winning, and we absolutely got smoked. And there has to be some real questions asked as to why.
I think one of the points to piggyback off that is that of our 14 shots, 7 were blocked. So that usually means A, Leeds threw themselves in front of everything, or B, they were able
to by our own players.
They were able to push us into non-dangerous positions, where they were able to limit the chances and the danger of it. That's usually what Chelsea are doing. And then you look at the shots we do have. Sterling had 1, Ruben had 2, Cucurella had 2, Gallagher had 1, Mount had 3, and then Reece James, Thiago Silva, and Koulibaly all had 1 as well. Ziyech had 2, which I blinked and I missed. So, Rodrigo, their striker, had 5, Harrison had 2, Aaronson had 2, and then their other attacker, Danny James, had 1, Che Adams had 1. 4 out of their 5 attackers all had multiple shots. And for us, I mean, it's good to see the wingbacks in those positions, but Kai Havertz had 0 shots the entire match, and Raheem had 1. So again, the majority of our shots came from wingbacks, which we know is an important part of this position, but that's not where we want to be, which, I think is interesting, to see kind of where the production or lack thereof came from.
I mean, that's part of the point here, though, right? Is that for, let's just call it a full year, we haven't really understood how this team is supposed to function offensively. And we have been so over-relying on these incredible wingbacks and, frankly, a lot of defenders to score a lot of goals, more than the average team would rely on a center backs or wing backs or defensive midfielders to score, right? If you throw Jorginho and his penalties in there. What did that front 3 do today? Or the front 6 when he made all the subs? What did they actually achieve? I mean, Dan, I looked at that and I was like, I never expected us to score 1 time today. I watched it. I just sat there in silence because I was like, well, there's no point in yelling at TV for this. They're not even in position. They're not even able to advance the ball to each other, let alone stay on side enough to receive it in a way to make something happen. It's crazy right now, man.
Yeah, the Raheem offside element for the ball he put in the back of the net felt very uncharacteristic of him in particular. But emblematic of how we have played maybe over the past year, where we have seen a fair number of offside goals because the release pass is too slow in the buildup, which is kind of back to what does or doesn't happen out of our midfield. And I think rightfully the midfield was non-existent. Maybe even more so when Tuchel changed formation at the very, very end of the match. It was, hey, I don't know how you get not less than non-existent, but it was like the ghost figure that you were chasing as you were racing yourself in a video game, and you were falling behind the pace of that. So I think if I were to kind of look at the issue you talk about as the systemic issue of how does this team score, this to me felt like a game where early in Tuchel's reign, we would just soak up some attack. We'd let them take some shots. We would try a ball over the top. We would try to release one of our very mobile players forward and let them see what happens. And we didn't do that, Brandon. We didn't give ourselves an opportunity to do things that have been successful for this team in creating goals in the past.
Yeah, well, we also created a huge one for them. I just want to jump in on Mendy's because we could just talk about the lack thereof of an attack and chances being created. Albeit Ruben had a pretty good day out, but Thomas Tuchel quotes on Edouard Mendy saying, quote, "He knows himself with these kind of mistakes. We don't have to speak a lot. It's a huge mistake in a crucial time in the match. It does not help, and he's the one who's the most disappointed," end quote. Grant Smith, you shared the tweet, Dan, saying, it is on Mendy, but no one came back to give him an option. Koulibaly didn't, Reece James didn't, Cucurella didn't. And if you watch the highlights back, I get that because as a goalkeeper, if you get a back pass, and I think it's pretty evident Tuchel wants them to play out of the back, especially when Leeds are high pressing. They want to suck Leeds up as high as they can, eventually skip a line, and now we're essentially equal numbers up. So Mendy's looking for a short pass. Nobody wanted it. I think Reece James even waved him off essentially. And at that point, he had already stopped the ball under his foot and he was dead in the water. And partially because Leeds pressed so fast and so high, he didn't have time to take that second touch. Now, I think at the end of the day, he could have probably like toe bashed it and gotten it out of bounds or wide or something like that just to let us reset. But, it's going to be controversial. I think at the end of the day, it is on him, but there's definitely shared blame in the fact that no one offered him any of the typical passing patterns that they probably practiced all week.
What do you think about just maybe Mendy as a whole over the past few months? Are you concerned about him from a goalkeeping perspective with some of the individual errors?
I mean, I think a past couple months is a tough window for him. I think we saw good saves against Spurs. I think Everton was fine, but I think that today was like a team lacking confidence and fight. And so a lot got thrown at him in that sense. He's not, I'd be a hell of a lot more worried about if De Gea was our goalkeeper than Mendy right now. But like, he's definitely trending downwards. We're just hoping that it's not too fast and it turns around quickly. I've seen stuff on Twitter calling for Kepa now. I mean, I'm sure he thinks he should get a start, but Mendy's probably got one more game to prove some confidence.
I mean, can I just like frame up the first 3 games of the season really quick? Because I think this is where I'm trying not to be too hot on everything that's happened today. You think about Everton. Yes, it was ugly. Yes, it was a clean sheet. Yes, we limited them doing almost anything in that game, right? It kind of felt like Tuchel first 6 months kind of performance, right? 1-0. They never really threatened. I think they had a couple of shots on goal, but he dealt with them. Off and running, got a clean sheet, right? Second match, he should have had another clean sheet. There shouldn't have been 2 goals scored in that game, right? Like, and so if you look at the frame of that, and you see Edouard Mendy back-to-back clean sheets to start the season. Chelsea beat Spurs in the second game on 6 points, heading up to Leeds. Then today's mistake becomes a lot different to deal with, to me, contextually, than it does under its current context, which is Mendy got fucked over by Anthony Taylor, right? That's how I feel about that. So, I mean, I'm worried personally. Like, I'm worried about him. I hope. I don't know what happened at AFCON, but I mean, that seems to be the turning point in January. Like, that he just wasn't really the same. And these errors can't happen at this level, man. Not at the rate in which they're happening. And, the Real Madrid thing is something people will never let him forget about. Today will probably be no different. It's always nervy watching this team play out of the back when he has to make a quick decision. And like, credit to him, most of the time it works out, but a lot of the time it makes you feel like your blood pressure is going to go through the roof watching him do it. And I just wonder, like, I understand the tactic, right? Especially for a team like Leeds who are vulnerable at the back. Like, if you can break a line, you're fucking gone, and like, you're probably scoring. But I just wonder, for the sake of this team, if it is better if we get back to batten down the hatches, kick it long, who gives a fuck, we can go get it, than being cute right now. I think this team has a lot of getting back to basics to do. And I think it starts with how we construct attacks. And I don't think it cheats anyone for him to go long in pressure situations.
You good with that, Dan?
Yeah, I think that the optics of the season changes dramatically if we had won versus Spurs, and this was our West Brom of the season, and we had gotten it out of the way early. But because you now lost the game in this fashion, you had 2 points stripped away from some pretty awful officiating, and now you're looking up at Arsenal, who, again, as we were talking about earlier, Nick, are not playing a real football team in the beginning of October. It's just going to be so annoying to listen to them. And again, credit to Leeds. They came to play today. Credit to Arsenal. They have come to play in every match they've played this season. And the individual mistakes just don't end with Koulibaly. I mean, with Mendy. Koulibaly was another person who really struggled today, which was not what we had seen over the past 2 matches.
No, I mean, he looked so far off of it. I mean, we just waxed poetic about him last week, Brandon.
We sure did double down.
This is the same guy who I was like, holy shit, what a man mountain, what a unbelievable contributor, what a great goal, what a fantastic amount of defending and cool passing and like that. I mean, whoever that was out there was not Kalidou Koulibaly. That was a stunt double or something out there who was running around aimlessly and making ridiculous challenges and looked out of shape today. I mean, that scared me a little bit, Brandon, to see a guy who looked so up for it against Spurs, so in the moment, and then to see him get pressed the shit out of by Brenden Aaronson and in such ease. Like he just couldn't handle it.
No, a lot of them couldn't. We've seen the highlights, Koulibaly struggled with the press, Connor struggled with the press at times. And the biggest reason why the press breaks a team is because the first pass is easy. The second pass has to happen at the same time. So if they pass out wide, that midfielder, while the ball is en route, needs to be pushing to find a gap. The winger or attacker needs to find space. The problem is you get 1.5 touches against Leeds. That is all the time you get on the ball. And if you can't one touch or settle and poke into space for someone, you're done. And many, many times we ended up with our back to our own goal, which is exactly where you don't want to be because you have no idea what's in front of you and you can't do anything about it. And that was a huge, kind of problem that was quite obvious. And they weren't ready for it. So,
but it's odd, isn't it? Like when Chelsea have been most effective, it's when we have run not the same press that Leeds does. What Leeds does is ridiculous, and they're going to get fucking killed this year by doing it. Like there is no way they can sustain that for all year. But look at what Chelsea did in Real Madrid last year. We pressed them mercilessly. Like those really good footballers who won the Champions League, we pressed them damn near into submission. We were that close. So the fact that like Jorginho and Conor Gallagher, who pressed a lot last year, and like a bunch of these guys who are used to pressing, couldn't get out of their own way to save their lives. Like I just find that so strange. And it's not even like I'm being dramatic about it, but like that's what we do. That's what we did to Spurs all last week. It's crazy.
Yeah, we broke their press time after time and had success with it. Here's where the trend line's going under Tuchel, which, I don't buy everything, but stats are stats. You can use them how you want. I'd up to Joe tweeting 60. Today was Thomas Tuchel's 60th Premier League match. Chelsea conceded only 17 goals in the first 30 of those matches, but we have shipped exactly twice as many in the last 30. That's right. So 17 and 30, and now we have 34 and 30. Concern. And then Squawka getting in on the dog pile says, for just the third time under Thomas Tuchel, Chelsea have lost a Premier League game by 3 or more goals. 2-5 versus West Brom, 1-4 versus Brentford, 0-3 versus Leeds. This is the first time they haven't scored. So that is not a good trend. There's a lot of obviously factors that go into that. New manager bounce, like we talked about, Champions League run. We are defensive monsters. Now, look, he's trying to turn over half the squad. There's an unbelievable amount of unsettlement in this camp.
I mean, but I think 17 and 30 and 30 and 34.
And I think you'd probably say we had defensively stronger last season than the Champions League run, potentially.
Oh,
like
I don't think
personnel wise, right? Like you've been there longer. They know the system. There's really no reason that we were like weaker at that point.
But I mean, this is the weird part of it, right? Like we struggled to score goals in each campaign, right? Even so far this year. That first 6 months of Tuchel, take out the West Brom game, we let in 12 goals in 30 games. Like that's how you win football matches, it turns out. Like and a lot of those matches, we didn't allow teams to have but 1 or 2 shots on goal. Mendy was just back there making tea the entire time because we had such a tight vacuum seal on ball progression throughout our midfield and throughout our wing backs and even through the center backs. part of what I'm suggesting, Dan, and I know we're like looking for answers all over the pitch, and we'll get to that in a second. I think what I'm suggesting is that 17-30 looks a hell of a lot more attractive than a 30-34 to me. I think this team needs to chill out in advancing the ball and living in the other opposition half. And I think this team needs to be defensive juggernaut monsters, especially through the first half of this season, just to get to the World Cup without having surrendered so much of the league that you can't claw it back.
The issue being, though, is that you have a reliance on two players that are not always available or can't go the full match that were a key part, I think, in that solidity that we've lost in N'Golo Kante and Mateo Kovacic. And when you don't have a midfield and you're cobbling it together week by week, when you didn't have Chilwell, who now we have Cucurella, and that's a plus positive. When you didn't have Reece James, that second half of last season was stitched together. And we have started this season a little stitched together as well. You'd argue that we have some more players back, but they're not maybe playing the position like Reece, where you get to play him a little further forward. It has a little bit more danger. Surprisingly, Chalobah might go on loan if Fofana comes in, so he didn't feature today, which would have been, I think, very interesting in terms of being able to deal with that attack a little bit more. His passing range and his willingness to try a ball and get it forward, and we could have used some of that Hollywood passing today. So I think there's a lot that goes into that. There's also a couple of games that were just stupid, like the West Brom game. So we're talking about five goals just right there off the top from one individual game. I just don't feel like there's a lot of answers for Tuchel or for even the players at this point, Brenden, in terms of what they need to do differently. I think a lot of people are saying, well, play harder, show more commitment. And I think that only goes so far. I think that is a part of it and reduce the individual mistakes. But I think it goes back to like, where's everybody's head at in this moment?
The siege mentality, the defensive juggernaut stuff of the first, 5 months when they went Champions League is easy mid-season. He was trying to, turn the ship around. The players were looking for confidence and things like that after Frank. But like once you have a full preseason, Tuchel considers himself a fantastic coach. He's not going to go and park the bus for an entire season and just try to hit teams on the break. And also, we know that Chelsea has expectations to be on the offensive, to have a big team mentality, and to be able to play with transition and score goals from open play. That hasn't really happened, and so I think Tuchel has
ego, though. That's just ego.
He has to evolve with the team, because I don't think like even under Roman and maybe Boley, like they would accept him playing a block 8 and just looking to ping long balls onto Raheem running into the channels. I think there has to be some kind of evolution into like becoming a dominating team, kind of like Man City and Liverpool dominate teams.
That's not, I think that's not what I'm suggesting, but I am suggesting in the meantime that you revert back to defensive form.
I just wonder if the players will buy back into that after you kind of like gave them freedom and you're like, oh, no, you're not good enough. Come on back.
I don't think they have a choice. Like, I guess,
yeah.
I mean, with the amount that Boley's backing Tuchel right now, like, I don't think they have a choice. If you want to play, this is the way we're going to play. Like, we cannot. It is clear at this point, and for the foreseeable future, that if we press and get countered, it results in a goal more often than we'd like to admit, right? So stop doing that. Like, cut them off at the source. And a lot of teams that we're going to play, not your Man Cities, not your Liverpools, coincidentally, we play a lot better style against those teams because we do sit back a little bit, are going to want to counter us. Like, that's what they want to do. So don't let them. Like, Leeds only had 6 shots on target today, right? And we gave them one of them. Like, we gave them a goal right there, right? So
it's a no-look finish, by the way.
It's really hard to do when you're basically on the line. Yeah. It's
when
cool.
you're falling into goal.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I know it sounds shitty. I know it sounds like regression. I know what I'm suggesting is not sexy, but
no,
I like winning football matches, and we have the defensive.
It's pragmatism.
Weapons.
Is being pragmatic about what you actually can do right now, because there's a whole lot that still needs to be fixed.
I mean, if you convinced me, you're like, all right, Chelsea are scoring 4 or 5 goals a game, easy. We are just offensive weapons. Like, that's all we're doing. All right, let's concede some goals. Let's press high. Let's go crazy. Yeah, but we're not.
Yeah.
We're not even coming close to that. So, like, you can't give goals away and then not score them.
Yeah, we need the foundation to build off of. It's too erratic right now. I kind of tweeted that. It's like up, down, up, down. Like, we need consistency of climbing the stairs to the end of the season. Look, my biggest concern is that Reece at right center back again. Like, I get it, Dan. Ruben Loftus-Cheek looks good as right wing back. But the thing is, he's not as good as Reece as a right wing back. Like, he still is nowhere close to that. And right now, Tuchel seems really comfortable in the start Reece at right center back, start Ruben at right wing back. Okay, ready to make some subs. He's guaranteed to pull off a midfielder. He just slots Ruben into the midfielder, pushes Reece up, and then is like, oh, now we're going to have a change of approach. If you just had Reece there from the beginning, just pelting in crosses, bodying people into the boards, and just dominating on that side, especially when they have like a third string left back, they have like a center back playing left back just for cover today. That was a mismatch opportunity. And it's just, that is the one thing that I, again, don't know if there's some kind of depth chart issues. He probably doesn't really trust Aspi anymore. He clearly doesn't trust Trevor. Something has to change there because the Reece right center back sucks.
Or Trev is on his way to a loan and they're not going to risk him getting injured versus letting him play football, which again, if you go back to looking at that lineup today, how deep was the bench actually? Because when you look at it, okay, so behind Carnes, behind, I guess,
Chilwell.
Ethan, Chilwell, Aspi, who is staying but was going to leave, Kepa, who was going to leave but probably is going to be forced to stay. You have Ziyech, you have Pulisic, who would like potentially to go. You have Callum, who might potentially like to go. Like, that was a lineup of people who don't want to be there. Like, I mean, the fact that he actually got the subs to come on is quite magical in that element of it. And
I know, like Matt said, you know, that basically every attacker who's not playing right now wants to leave and go get playing time, which, like, naturally you understand like the logic to that in a World Cup year, right? But like, if you're Pulisic or Ziyech or Hudson-Odoi looking at that attack and you're wondering how you can't get in after 3 matches and absolutely no goals from a center forward or forward option, you know, I'd be pissed off. You know, and by the way, when they came on, they didn't really do anything super, but
yeah,
you're telling me that like you can't do at least that
Ziyech
good?
came on and he actually had 2 shots and one of them wasn't too far off.
Yeah, it got deflected around.
It was trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, that was an improvement on the day where we had none of those. I mean, that's just how desperate this is. And like, part of me was like pissed off when I heard the news that like Pulisic wanted to move out. You kind of watch what's happened at the start of this year, and like you see that Kai keeps getting playing time. You see that, you know, Mason and Raheem haven't been nearly as dynamic as we thought they'd be. And yeah, I'd be pissed off too.
Last thing to touch on, I guess, really at this point is the mentality problem, ? CFC Daily, credit to them on this tweet. They quote tweeted Naz, who had the Tuchel comment, says, "You maybe don't believe me, but I don't think we have a huge mentality problem or a problem in preparation." To which CFC Daily quote tweeted said, "Chelsea have gone behind 6 times since Aston Villa took the lead on Boxing Day. In a game we won 3-1. Since then, we have not won any of those 6 games. Mentality problem and a problem in adapting to situations." Post-match today, he even said, "Nick, maybe I shouldn't have changed the plan. The plan was kind of working." He's like, "I just changed it to be reactionary. And maybe I shouldn't have." And then we know that it just kind of changed and changed again. And at the end of it, you didn't really know what we were doing.
Again, back to basics. Like, we don't have the personnel as it currently is formatted to play a 4-3-3. I know no one wants to hear that. I don't care. I'm just saying it out loud. Like, did we kind of get back into the game a little bit in the second half? Sure. Did we still lose 3-0? Yes.
And you can say we lost the second half 1-0.
Sure did. So go back to the identity. Go back to what you know how to do, what these players have been drilled to do. Stop fucking changing it on them every other game. Stop switching up formations in game so that players are less sure of where they should be. Like, yes, Reece James is a weird, unbelievable player that he can play 3 positions in one game. He can play right center back, right wing back, and right back in one game because he's a fucking amazing. Not every player is capable of doing that. And the system can oftentimes dictate how players react in situations. So if everyone's really confident in what they do, then you have a well-drilled team. That's what Leeds looked like today. They were a well-drilled team, right? Do I think that they're going to come close to sniffing the top 10 at the end of the season? I do not. I really don't. I think they're still going to get injuries, and I think they're not very deep at all. I think they're going to really struggle the second half of the year. However, we don't even look like we have the identity anymore. We don't even look like we know how to play a 3-4-3, which is what we've been doing since January of 2021. Like, that frightens me, man. That really does. And like, there's in a moment like this, you need to be able to rely on your instincts, and your instincts come from training and training in that formation day in and day out for a long time.
Definitely had the long time part. Let's try to break down a couple questions that we feel like are lacking definite answer. Obviously, Nick kind of cracked a couple eggs on that one. I think this is really interesting. What is the biggest area of need? Defense, midfield, attack? Shit, you can put a goalkeeper in there right now too. Tuchel was asked, "Hey, why aren't you going to sign any mids? Your midfield looks a bit shit in a nice way." To which he rattled off, "I have Jorginho, I have Conte, I have Kovacic, I have Connor, I have Ruben." I feel like he said someone else. Anyways, he just rattled off the 4 or 5 midfielders that we have and said, "We're good." To which I think everyone responded, "Are we? Are we really good?" And look, you can say the attack's a problem, but unless the midfield play at a high level and stay healthy, which they've shown zero ability to do either, I still think a good midfield unlocks an attack. You see Man City threading passes through all day long, even against Newcastle. They were always creating opportunities. And like, we can say a lot about Kai and Mason and runs and things like that and just actual finishing, but they have to be given decent chances to finish. And that comes from the midfield. So I still stand by the fact that midfield for us is the biggest area of weakness for us. But shit, this is a terrible match to put all these in, Dan, because we had a lot of leaks springing out of this hose today.
Well, yeah, it's whether it was a hose or a ship, it had whatever analogy you want to use. There were a bunch of leaks, and there are not enough fingers to plug all the holes. But I think it's midfield first. The points that you made, I think it would be attack second, and I actually think defense is third. Like, you can get by with Chalobah and Aspi and Ampadu with the current defense that we have for a season if you have healthy midfielders like N'Golo Kante and Jorginho, or Jorginho, Kovacic. If they can all stay healthy and contribute, and you add one more, whether it's a De Jong, whether that's someone else in that capacity, that would be a way, way better situation than what we have right now. So I think, to me, that is number one. I think attackers, Aubameyang doesn't solve it for me. I personally am not behind that, but if it's a buy, it doesn't feel right to me. But let me crazy loan where we pay a bunch of money for a 1-year loan, so we're not stuck to something long term. Cool, but I don't think he solves the problem. But an attacker would be second, and the defender's third. Nick, I think that's my ranking: midfielder, attacker, defense.
Yeah, I mean, look at the difference in performance from last week to this week, and then look who was missing in midfield. I mean, it's just, you have a world-class midfielder who can't stay healthy. And next to him is the most stationary midfielder of all time. N'Golo Kante makes up for all of your mistakes. He progresses the ball. He does so much shit that people don't even want to give him credit for. But if he's not on the field, there is a 2-player gap there that you have to solve for. And frankly, Kovacic, I'm now even more worried about than N'Golo Kante. He's younger. And now he's having knee problems. Now I'm scared. It's midfield for sure. And if only there were a player, and thinking about him right now, He's currently on the last place team in the league. It's Fred. I'm kidding. But it's like Declan Rice solves a bunch of your problems here. He does. He's expensive as fuck. I don't care. Go get him. Like, do something crazy. You have a week left in this window. Go do something nuts. Because I am with Dan. Like, if I could only have one, which is a attacker that would get us some goals, or a midfielder that would help us retain what I think is a really solid structure that doesn't allow shots on goal and allows us to control games, I'm taking the midfielder. I think we can squeeze enough goals out of whatever the fuck we have going on up top to make it work. If we only have a goal scorer and we don't have that midfielder,
you want to keep it tight. A midfielder keeps it away. You only need one goal, free kick. I mean, you remember how many penalties we scored in that run with Tuchel when we were defensive juggernauts, and so I think we all agree. We obviously do. How many signings will we likely make yet in the window? Sunday, the 21st of August, when we're recording. So who really knows? I mean, what's the over under on like 2.5?
I mean, you would want it to be over. You really, really are hoping that we hit the over on that one.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. I think today might be a change agent for that. Like, because it won't be as if these deals aren't already happening or talks aren't already happening, right? It's a lot to get done in how many days?
10 days.
9 days.
Nine when this releases, but 10 at the moment.
So it's a lot. It's a lot to get done. But I mean, especially if you have players who want out, like, you got to replace them. I mean, Dan just rattled off the bench. Like, we're not nearly as deep as we thought we'd be at this point.
I mean, obviously Fofana and a striker, potentially Aubameyang, seem like the most likely 1-2, and then mystery player for 3. So it have to be interesting to see how that shakes out. Like I said, is Bully gonna double down, or are they just gonna wait for the window shuts and say, all right, now the squad's settled, you don't have a choice? Oh shit, is that Marcos over there? Huh, what do we do with him?
Striker.
That's honestly Seriously. How it's gonna shake out. Should Kepa get a run over Mendy? I'll go ahead and pass this one along. I kind of tried to ask it, but Dan flirted it right back to me. So Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, you flirt. You crazy flirt, Dan.
I think you give him another game, and it was a comedy of errors across the entire team. I think you give him one more game, and if his form is still shaky, I think you can seriously consider post Leicester giving Kepa a run. That will also mean that Kepa has stayed, and we weren't able to execute on getting him out and getting a different second choice keeper in. I wouldn't upset the person who is going to likely be the starting goalkeeper for the majority of the season. When we're also potentially betting in new signings, like Kepa plus new defenders, like that also has a recipe for success. Like, oh, hey, Cucurella's there. Koulibaly will be back in a match. Like, I don't know. That sounds worse in some capacity.
Yeah, I'm a little different on this. I think you give Mendy until the international break window at, I think, the 3rd week of September, and which is a long time. I mean, in football, and there's going to be a lot of matches that are played in between now and then. I think this was one mistake today, right? And yes, it is on top of some of the trend lines that we don't like. I'm worried about him personally, but like, I think you have to give him a chance to make the saves that we know he can make. And I think if you don't give him that, then the confidence is just going to be an issue all year. So I think Tuchel, go ahead.
I was say, hasn't Tuchel benched him before for a few matches last season?
I think it happened once, and Kepa played actually pretty decent, but when it's winning time, you know what Tuchel's going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. What about Kai Havertz being an automatic starter? He is a lightning rod on Twitter right now. I just saw someone tweet, and I'm sure you guys can find it if you want, but essentially said, if you pull away his Champions League final Porto, what's he done?
He had a really, really hot middle part of the season last year that covered up his pretty cold finish to it. It's a fair question, and I don't think he is a automatic starter. And I think that's why Tuchel is saying we need a striker who can get me 10 goals, 15 goals, 20 goals this season.
Striker hurts Kai. Right? Right?
He has to earn it.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, if you pull in a striker, it's Mason, Kai, Christian, and Raheem for those 2 wing spots now. Like, he went from comfortably in the starting lineup to not even. And I think that you could even say, going into this match against Leicester City, maybe you put him on the bench just to like send a message. I don't, he probably doesn't need a message sent, but maybe to just because it's like, hey, you're not doing it. This is a meritocracy. We're going to let Christian start this match because he should have an opportunity to go out there and prove himself. You haven't.
It is not out of the realm of possibility that Havertz doesn't play for a while. Like, he's been that bad. I mean, we all saw him in preseason. He looked awful. I remember Dan and I sat in the steamy press box of the Florida Cup in Orlando and looked at each other and were like,
boy, it was steamy.
Yeah, it was. And that not just because Dan was flirting with everyone up there, but like, it was like, we just looked at each other and we're like, he is nowhere near the level, like not even close. And it's not because he looks out of shape or anything. I don't think it's a fitness issue. I just don't think he knows where to be, which is frightening because he's playing the same position that he's been playing since Tuchel got here. Like, this is another thing that came back to me a lot today, which is what's different? What are they trying differently up top? Because I don't see it. And I'd much rather, frankly, against Leicester, against that really weird defense that's happening right now, if you look at the way that Arsenal played them last week, I'd much rather have a Pulisic or a Ziyech pair up with Mason and Raheem and do the weird ass amoeba thing where they all switch positions and they all feed each other. Like, I'd much rather have that than watch Kai be offside for 6 times. Like, he lived offside today. It was the Timo Werner jersey was placed on his shoulders and now he's wearing it. Like, it's crazy.
Okay,
it's crazy.
That's a bad look. All right, look, we had questions of what are you going to do with Conte and Kovacic swapping injuries. We already said it. You bring in Rice, you find a new midfielder. And the last question we got was who's most likely to leave before the end of the window. And I think we literally said, just look at our bench. Like that is our leave list.
The one thing that I would hope we see, and we talked about this with Matt a few weeks ago, but the idea that Bowley and team would be a little ruthless at the end of this window. And I think we're looking for some of that to be on display. If it's on the pitch, if we're doing it in the contractual sense, in the player signing and the player recruitment, and then also in the players being sent out who clearly are deemed not to be a part of the solution. So what do you do with Ross Barkley before you end the window? What are you going to do with Billy Gilmore, who seemingly is not going to be a part of the plans here? What are you doing with Mishi before you end the window? Because if you just have them hanging around the U23s and hanging around the squad, you're not giving anyone the chance to create a harmonious atmosphere that is going to be the bedrock of a campaign to be built on that will be successful.
So obviously you're referencing cutting up contracts, canceling them early, paying them out to leave. I mean, look, we've survived Drinkwater for 4 years. Like one more year, Barkley. I don't think it really matters at all. The club just have a fiduciary duty to take care of things as best they can. There's a reason why a lot of players go to Turkey. Their transfer window is open later. It used to be Rush as well, but I don't even think they're having the Russian league for very obvious reasons. So look, you're not going to see them. It's just more like it's a shit way to treat those players. I think Billy is your exception. Young, up and coming, has a future. Even if it's not Chelsea, it's as a professional. Let him go somewhere. It's going to be a big week. It's going to be a big week. Expect to refresh that transfer market page a couple times a day. You're probably going to see some updates, even if you don't really know what's going on. Kennedy's still around, by the way. So, Dan of the match was obviously canceled. But we have some other results around the league. Dan, why don't you take us around the league and tell us what happened? Obviously, we were recording before the Manchester United Liverpool relegation derby, but there's a lot of other matches that happened.
Look,
God.
it would be just the best if they had a draw. It would just make things a whole lot easier on us. That would be really appreciated if you could conspire to help us out with that one. Look, Tottenham beat Wolves 1-0. Crystal Palace with a wonderful win on a Zaha brace 3-1 over the Villains. You had Everton and Nottingham Forest tie 1 apiece. You had Fulham 3-2 over the Bees. That's right. Southampton 2 over Leicester 1. Arsenal again continuing to fly all the way to the top of the table after smashing the Cherries of Bournemouth 3-0. And then it was us losing the Leeds 3-0. Brighton again, the Gulls are flying high against West Ham 2-0. And then Newcastle got ahead, but then Man City do what they do and came back to level it at 3 apiece.
A couple of thoughts from my observations this weekend. This could be the year that we beat Bournemouth. It really,
what a bar.
You're speaking way too soon.
They are bad. Very, very, very bad.
Look, Bournemouth have 3 points and West Ham have none. So let's just put things in perspective.
I
we
know.
won't get to find out until Boxing Day, Nick.
I know.
You want some bad Christmas presents?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Of course, by the way, it's the first game back from the World Cup where we get fucking Bournemouth in. God, the Premier League schedulers are dicks. Leicester are very bad. They could probably use some money. I understand that there's some to be had if they want it. So there's that.
They're in real trouble. They said that Rodgers will get less than half of any transfer fee that comes in for Fana. So 75 million if you can get him down. He's only going to get 32.5 million off of that. That's a squad player. Go to Belgium. Try to spread your funds out.
And the last one is that Newcastle are an attacker away, I think, from being a real problem for people. Like they took City to the fucking limit today. And yes, I think City should have won that game. That's not saying a whole lot, but the fact that they were able to do it when they got smashed by them, I think like 6 or 7-0 on aggregate last year. That team is improving for 3.1 trillion reasons, but they're going to be really tough to play against. Really tough.
All right. Well, a far too early table stands Arsenal at the top with 9 points. Manchester City in second on 7 points. Leeds in third on 7 points as well. Tottenham Hotspur in fourth with 7 points.
Okay, let's just pause there. Can you think of a worse, maybe Liverpool for City? Can you think of a worse top four than that?
It's pretty close to being the worst.
Well, keep going.
And in the relegation spots, as it stands, Leicester City in 18th with 1 single point and a shittier goal difference than Wolves and Everton, who also have 1 point. Manchester United 19th. They moved up a place to 19th because of goal difference. Actually, no, because of alphabetical order. They have no points with -5 goal difference. And West Ham, who are, again, relegated to 20th because of the W in their name. They are on 0 points with -5 as well. Sucks to them because they played 3 matches. United only played 2. United and Liverpool
there's going to be a protest
Monday.
tomorrow, so they're not going to play. So that's what's going to happen.
It's going to be, they're going to end up with a -15 goal diff after tomorrow. I mean, United is in very big trouble. I know that we are not in a good spot.
Watch United pull something out of their hat because Liverpool haven't been great either. This is just one of those weird games where it's like the upside down world of this
Liverpool
season.
almost have as bad a midfield problem as we do.
James Milner.
Yeah.
Should I kill for James Milner right now?
Gareth Barry, anybody?
Okay, and that explains the depth of our problem, Nicholas Delaney. Way to underline it right at the end.
I just don't want Jordan Henderson because I've talked a lot of shit about him on Twitter. So
and
now Brandon Busby has to defend him.
That would be terrible. All right, that's going to wrap us up. Look, we have stretched this out. I think it was a good approach to this one. I think hopefully it'll give you not problem solved, but I think
I've solved them. I gave you plenty of solutions.
Well, I think it at least gives you a better way to digest what has happened. So
cctbowley@chelseafc.com.
Hope you are enjoying the kickoff to the week. We don't
goes
get to
by
play.
the Todd, right? The Todd at chelseafc.com.
No. He's going to use like a corporate address. Come on.
Anyways, we've got a week off until the next match. We'll have more episodes dropping at
Bully
you
for soup at
this
Chelsea
week. Nick will
This
be
is
leaving
MySpace
us to
handle.
go across the pond. So safe travels to him. Tweet at him. Let him know you think that he's going to go watch some American football in the UK, which is a little ass backwards, but whatever.
Hey, I'm going to watch Nebraska play the season opener in Dublin because I like Dublin, frankly, and I don't really even like my team that much.
You're going to have any O linemen?
No, probably not. We're going to be terrible again. But I will say I will be in London the 28th until the 2nd. So I've messaged a bunch of people, but if you want to hang out, just DM me and we'll figure it out.
Must be nice. Anyways, that's going to wrap us up. More content coming at you again. Join the Patreon. Enjoy the Discord at your leisure. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.